Good afternoon, everybody. My lecture is on nuclear fuel cycle, as Professor Thomas said. This nuclear fuel, as you have already taken so many classes on this nuclear reactions and radioactivity. Here, if I give the definition of nuclear fuel cycle, we can say it like this, that nuclear fuel is an assembly of nuclear materials which can generate sustained and extractable energy in a controlled manner through nuclear reaction. So we have so many words here. One is that nuclear materials. By now you must have understood that what all materials are specific to this nuclear reactions directly or indirectly. They are known as nuclear materials. And sustained also, and the quantum is very high. So that is the energy which we need to get extracted for our further utilization. So this has to be in such a way generation that we should be able to extract this heat energy. And as you all know, for heat transfer, we need to reduce the heat transfer resistance, and most of the heat transfer in this case, it is either by conduction or by convection. So we have to have a greater transfer areas. Now, keeping in view that neutron economy and this heat transfer area, it's a challenging point how to design a fuel so that neutron leakage also should not increase, core should be compact. Along with that, we should have sufficient heat transfer available. So this is the fuel designer's responsibility. And after that, we come to the point controlled, because heat is being generated. If we cannot control it, we will not be able to utilize it properly. So for this controlled in the reactor physics, you must have learned we are using controlling elements. It is just opposite of that neutron economy. There you have to have such materials which is having a good absorption cross section for the neutrons and can do the control during the reaction as and when it is needed. And nuclear reactions we know already. Here we will be mostly bothered about the fission reaction, because at this moment power generation commercially is with fission reaction. The life cycle of the material used as the nuclear fuel. So we said that fuel is the material which will undergo the fission reaction. So as in your earlier classes, you must have learned that fissile materials naturally available is uranium, which is a composite of few isotopes. Out of that, 235 is only the fissile isotope. This fissile isotope in natural uranium concentration is very low. If we wanted to increase it, we have to do a isotopic concentration increase. Otherwise, it will be 0.7%. And along with 238 is the highest amount, maximum amount is 238, which is a fertile material. And we have very small amount of 234, 0.005 or so in that range. This is generally people don't bother it, but when you do the enrichment, these also get increased, and that is the main radioactivity generating part in the uranium. So during that time, we have to take care of this. So fuel cycle of nuclear materials used in this, first is that nuclear fuel uranium. That is the only available, naturally available fuel. which we can do the mining and get it. By now, you have learned other two isotopes also, which are fissile, like plutonium and uranium-233. Those are man-made isotopes. There is no scope to dig them out from the mines. So mining of ore means it's only natural uranium mining. Then fabrication of the fuel. Fuel fabrication, as we are using both the fissile, both make three fissile materials like plutonium, uranium-233 and natural uranium or the enriched uranium. So we have to make fuels using this fissile isotope. Then it's utilization in the reactor. In the reactor physics, we have already undergone the different various types of reactors. As we basically at the initial period, we do division in a very crude way, like power reactor and research reactors. Basic difference in these reactors is the utility point of view. Research reactors will be basically for material research or neutronic research, fuel development, and isotope production. And for power reactors, it is power generation is the main aim. So there will be a difference in their construction, difference in the concept of making. Accordingly, fuels will be made. And based on the neutron power, we have again divided them like our light water reactors and heavy water reactors. So light water reactors, where we are using mostly enriched uranium, and moderation is not a requirement there. So light water we are using as a moderator is not a requirement, I should not say. It is a moderation requirement is not that high, because heavy water is a much better moderator compared to light water. Even in between them, light and heavy water, we have graphite also as a moderator. So there again, fuel design will be a different. Now in this light water, we have boiling water reactors and PWS. So basically their fuels will be mostly a similar kind. Besides all this, we have our fast reactors. Their fuel will be again another type. So based on the reactor types, fuel design will be there. It will be utilized as per their design life. And then beyond the design life, this is to be taken out. Reactor has to be refueled, and the spent fuel has to be either stored for the proper decay or with a proper precaution. For few spent fuels, we have to do the processing also at the earliest. And here lies the difference whether this fuel cycle will be a closed or open. A closed fuel cycle means after taking the spent fuels out, it will be processed. Whatever valuable materials are there, that will be taken out by utilizing fuel reprocessing. Then those valuable materials either can go directly to the power generation again as a nuclear fuel, or there may be some other societal benefits for that. You have already learned all those things during last few classes. So this is the closed fuel cycle, where we are taking back this valuable material again close back to our nuclear power generation. But there are few places, few countries who just keep them in a proper storage with proper precaution and surveillance. A lot of considerations are there in this. The countries like us, where your fissile material is not that good quality. We don't have that good quality uranium, or our needs are high. So there it will be always good to do the recycling and take back, use it maximum, so that your even disposal load is also reduced. But there is a problem like proliferation. Means as we are making this material very clean for using, so there is a fear of proliferation. So you have to be very secure for taking care of this materials, and you have to have little costly processes for doing this. You have to handle radioactivity. So many countries they don't like to do it. So it's in both the ways. It can be a open field cycle or a closed field cycle. India processes are like closed field cycle. Point. This slide is also a very well known for you all. So you know all the components here. I just wanted to show it to put you across this with respect to the whole system. Where is the fuel and how is its considerations? So here is the reactor containment. Inside the containment, you have this reactor vessels, and inside that you have your nuclear fuel. Now, this fuel material, as I said, that it has to be arranged in such a way so that you can extract the energy. At the same time, you should not allow the neutrons to leave. So accordingly, it has been arranged. It will be arranged, and then it has to be contained in the support materials, which is for our case PWS. It is a tube. Inside that you have fuel pellets are stacked. So this material is also important, and that selection of that material depends on their nuclear properties, their corrosion properties, their heat transfer properties, and for most of our cases it is zirconium, zircaloy. So that extraction also is a point in our nuclear fuel cycle. This slide is also a very known slide for you, and it is, I have showed it only for the point of view of this neutrons, which during the reaction when it is generated, it's having very high energy and it will be in a very high mobility. So which may be in the range of 20,000 kilometers per second or so. Unless it is brought down to a much lower value, your fissile cross sections will be much low even for a very good fissile material. So generally when fissile material densities are not very high, we wanted to go for a thermal reactor where this speed is much reduced. And immediately after fission, for thermalization, we need to have the moderators. That also you must have learned. We have moderators, as I said, that heavy water, light water, graphite, this type of material. And during fission, you may have, as per the studies, I could see that 80 types of fission reactions can occur. Means fissile fragments we can have depending on the nature of your neutron energy. So this is the curve which is well known, where we could see that when the nuclear, when your energy of the neutron is low, it is coming down, and once the increase in energy is there, it will be in this type of regions, it will go up. But major type of material which will be formed during fission, there will be two fragments. One will be lighter fragments, another will be heavy fragments. So this only within this mass number it will vary. So there will be various compositions or combinations depending on the condition. These two reactions are also very well known for you. For me, it is required only as we are getting thorium, uranium-233, and from uranium-238 we are getting plutonium. So these two are man-made isotopes. which is being used as fuel. This slide is a little heavy slide. I would like you to go through little slowly on this. I'm not sure whether you have already learned this or not. Here is this boxes we are having the atomic number and the element, and other designations are there. Like as I said, for any fissile material, also we have to have a basic minimum critical mass to become a critical during your nuclear reaction. For sustainable nuclear reactions, you have to have some specific masses. So these masses are also mentioned for this element, and this green colored pins, they are showing that this material will be spontaneous neutron source, and the blue ones are vulnerable poisons, and red ones are the fissile materials. So you see, as you put this in the reactor continuously, it's a very dynamic state. Continuously, conditions are changing. So many isotopes that is being formed. In case of plutonium, we could see that we have totally 5 isotopes. In the way of nuclear reactions, it is going on forming, and as the condition is very dynamic, I can tell you that half of them, it's only which are even mass numbers, they are fissile materials, whereas others are not practically fissionable, but they can be made fissionable under very high neutron conditions. But for all practical purposes, we will consider plutonium-239 and plutonium-241 only as a fissile material. But other 3, this 238, 40, and 42, we can see that they are generations of neutrons, very spontaneous neutrons are taking place from them. So when you are handling this plutonium, you cannot do the separation of this particular isotopes from your fissile material. So this will be there. You have to know the condition, and then accordingly you have to take the precautions. So this is only I wanted to highlight to you here that how dynamic is the condition inside the reactor when this nuclear reaction is taking place, and to finalize the life of the fuel inside the reactor, what all calculations need to be done depending on their residency and the reaction time. This is showing you the nuclear fuel cycle complete as a closed and including your 3 stages of the nuclear fuel cycle. Now here I just wanted to give you few highlights which will tell you the history of Indian nuclear fuel cycle development. As you all aware, this 1948, Bhabha started this AEC, Atomic Energy Commission, and this commission, as soon as it started, he did 2 very important things. Firstly, he took out this reserve of the what you can say that rare materials, that was called as rare materials, basically this nuclear materials from our GSI, the Geological Survey of India. From Geological Survey of India, those sections were taken under department, or at that time department was not there, under the Commission of Atomic Energy, because he was aware that first we have to get the nuclear material, and at the same time we have to get the post or the manpower also. So we started talking to all the universities, Indian universities, for including different subjects in their syllabus, so that at the end of their courses they can get the manpower directly from them, because our training school was not that time there. So these two are very, very important parts we took. So immediately next year in 1949, Indian Rare Earths Limited got registered, and that registration was very important for the whole history, because that was the source of nuclear material, thorium, and along with thorium, some amount of uranium was also there. So they took initiative to start the plant, because by that time mining was not so very easy, and they were not able to pinpoint the actual locations of the uranium mine. So they extracting sand or the beach sand was much easier than going for the mines inside. So they started checking out the sand qualities, and the first plant in this atomic energy, you can say, was the thorium concentration unit, which was started in Alve. 1951, this plant started working. It made the thorium concentrate, and by that time, this 1954, 1953, 1954, we have our department established, Department of Atomic Energy. And parallelly, work was going on to take land and establish our facilities at Trombay. That time, by 1954, DAE was started. Parallelly, AEET, that is Atomic Energy Establishment Trombay, was also started. So as you all see now, north side, south side, earlier days, but the initial plant, initial development was started at the south side only. And south side thorium plant was the first plant in this unit. This AEET afterwards was renamed to BRC after death of Baba, that is 1966. So I will call it as a BRC only from that time only. So in that, the first plant was again the thorium plant. The thorium concentrate which was generated in Cochin, Alve, that was brought down here to make nuclear pure thorium. And in the process of nuclear pure thorium, we were getting crude uranium fluoride as a byproduct, because that concentrate contained 0.35% of uranium. So this thorium plant started making thorium. That was basically required for the mantle grade, and then it was improved to nuclear grade. And along with that, byproduct crude UFO. Meantime, there was a decision that reactor Apsara, as Uma has already showed you that nice pictures of Apsara to install, that was also south side, near this thorium plant only. If we see the photographs, you will be able to appreciate that how Baba took all these initiatives. And though in that Apsara, our fuel cycle facilities were not so very enriched that time, because the fuel came from UK, it was highly enriched uranium. But we have learned building the reactor and specifically operating the reactor, nuclear reactor. That was the first reactor in our unit. And you will be happy to know, though it was not designed by us, but when the criticality operation started, there was problem. So even after 3-4 days of work, in 1956, July, it started. July end, started criticality operation, but it was not becoming critical. And then our scientists only could able to identify the fault, rectified it, and 1st of August 1956, it was made critical. How nice. And immediately, that was the time when next to this Apsara reactor and thorium plant, Bhabha took a decision to make uranium. That is the first indigenous fuel, uranium fuel plant. And that source of that plant was thorium concentrate, which we could get from the thorium plant. So utilizing this thorium concentrate, the plant was built, a lot of new technologies were developed. And by 1959, the first nuclear grade uranium metal was produced. And this was required because by that time we have already taken a decision that CIRUS reactor will be operative in DARC. So though CIRUS reactor was a Canadian supported reactor and half charge or partial charge was coming from Canada, but there was a filling and there was a need to generate our own product, and that was also utilized for fueling this reactor. So this CIRUS reactor, which got commissioned in 1960, 59 first uranium metal ingot was produced. This metal ingot was given to the fuel fabrication plant for making the fuel. That fuel was made by 1960, and 1960 this reactor was critical. The reactor construction work was going on earlier only. It took maybe 3 to 4 years for overall completion. And as soon as this reactor got commissioned and our full fuel cycle started evolving. Front end also evolved. We got our uranium metal and metallic fuel production. And during uranium metal production, we have already produced our oxide also, because after oxide only metal comes. So oxide fuel production also was established. Metal fuel production established. Then fuel fabrication part established. Reactor operation, refueling, storage of spent fuel was established. And immediately the feeling came that this has to be reprocessed. So work started for reprocessing plant also. By 1961, 62, this work started. And 1964, we could take the active trials in this plant. So you could see reprocessing also started. Now, this is the back end of the fuel cycle. After reactor, whatever we do, we call it as a back end, and fresh fuel fabrication is falling on the front end. So in the back end, plutonium production started. And it was nice that immediately our plutonium fuel fabrication setups also started developing. Meantime, we had our first commercial power reactor at Tarapur, that was BWR, given by GE from US. Though the fuel fabrication and design was not ours, but construction and after that commissioning operations were our operations. So there we started learning this power plant operation and maintenance. Meantime, as we said, that plutonium processing work also started, and this labs started making plutonium oxide fuel. And by as early as beginning of the 70s, 71, 72, we started our reactor Purnima 1 tank type small research reactor, which was filled with plutonium oxide. So you see, our second stage was started that time itself. And then this, in between, we have few more major achievements in this nuclear fuel cycle. That is 67, we started our mining operation by UCIL, and ore processing job, already research work was going on in DARC. That also started there at Jadavara. And in 71, nuclear fuel complex at Hyderabad started. At this moment, nuclear fuel complex is one of the biggest fuel fabrication complex in the world. It's very big. I cannot say that this is the biggest, but it's very big and very well equipped with all the facilities, starting from ceramic fuel fabrication of different grades and all structural materials, zirconium, stainless steel. So for all types of reactors, they are equipped. So this was started in 1971. This work also, initial research work, as I said, that we started doing uranium metal plant. There only basic activities were there because we did this whole processing. So oxide fuel production technology was transferred there. And parallelly, zirconium sponge production technology, which was developed by the metallurgy divisions there, that also got shifted, and NFC started producing. So we came up to where this plutonium fuel utilized in Purnima 1. Then within few years, we got our indigenous PHWA. That is in Rajasthan. Though it was with the help of Canadian persons, half charge of the fuel was made by us, Indian, and all the reactor construction part of fuel fabrication was done by us. By 80s, this was commissioned. And real indigenous plant was MAPS, where everything was from India only. That was in 1984, 85, 86. So in between, we did our Purnima 2. And you'll be surprised, Purnima 2 was filled with uranium-233. So we could complete utilization of all three isotopes, fissile isotopes, indigenously within such a short span of time. So Purnima 2 was uranyl nitrate solution, 233 fissile material. And after that, we said that we started our MAPS power plant, which was totally indigenous. And 85, we did our FBTR operation started. That is also another very big activity because we had a lot of challenges as the fuel was denied. So it was developed completely Indian way. This is uranium plutonium carbide. And this with this fuel 85 we started FBTR. So with this we can see that we have mostly completed all our activities, including recycling of materials which has been generated after reprocessing. There was one more major achievement that was in 90s, that is the construction of alloy fuel material with 233. And that was in Purnima 3. Afterwards, this was shifted in 1996 to start Kamini reactor Calcutta. So we will be, if we just see the total condition that within 50 years we could complete the full complete cycle of nuclear fuel. So I will just give you the connectivities of this nuclear fuel activities in India. This is not actually complete. There are many points to be added here, which I have not done. But major units, I just wanted to inform you. The starting point is AMD, which I said with AMD we did all this exploration, and from there we give all the informations to other units. Like for uranium, we give to UCIL, and UCIL did the mining jobs, processing of the milling jobs, mining and milling jobs, and then they send the concentrates to nuclear fuel complex NFC. And about the zirconium and thorium, part information goes to IREL, part 2 NFC. From there, IREL gives some information to VARC and the uranium metal, which is generated in VARC, that is utilized in VARC research reactors. And VARC used to do earlier, started fuel reprocessing, and used to do means now also they do all research reactor reprocessing. But for power reactors, a recycling board has been constituted, and they do all power reactor fuel reprocessing. And power reactors are managed by NPCIL, which was started late in 1987 or so. But before that, power reactor activities were taken care by PPED and all other units. It was only a corporation formation during that time. So we can see these connectivities of this cycle where we have not included that heavy water. Heavy water is also a very important component in this whole fuel cycle, but generally we don't include them in the fuel cycle activities. Our first heavy water requirement was there in CIRUS, which was received from US. And after that, CIRUS was commissioned in 1960. So in 62 itself, we started producing our own heavy water, that is in the Nangal plant. So that now all these heavy water activities are being taken care by heavy water board. Along with heavy water, they are doing many other diversified jobs based on this isotopic separation processes. So these are the few basic units of nuclear fuel cycles in India. So with that, I close today's class, and in the next class onwards, we'll start individual operations like mining, milling, fuel fabrication one by one. Thank you.